Tina, did, I can't hear you.
I was doing those other things, but I thought you got it in the meantime. I can get it if you want me to.
I
Let me get it.
I got it. I got it on my phone, but I think if you can do it, it would be clearer
I'll see if I
somehow.
can.
Oh, nice T-shirt. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured this was the way to go today.
Get that Celtic connection happening.
Get that clan mentality. Yeah, maybe,
I
maybe.
know, right? The Druids really had it going on. They never
I
wrote
still got. I
anything
still have
down.
questions, brother. I still have questions.
What are the questions? What possible questions can you
Distractions,
have?
distractions, a defense because I don't want to just drop in things now. So I have questions, but
Fair enough.
yeah, got four of them. But keep dropping.
You got four questions. You're writing
Four.
them down.
No, I just know that the four were the same four that keep looping in my mind until I can just drop the whole thing. There's four questions.
Uh,
This
well,
being one of them.
let's just drop it now.
Yeah, I
I,
love talking to
I
Greg.
think you should. I think you should ask them now.
Who's saying that? Of course, that would be you,
Eh,
Gay. Of course, that would be you. I'm gonna mute you. Watch how I don't ask the question. Watch me drop it now. All right.
All right, drop it now. There's Ra,
There it is.
Zoe. You got it loaded? All
No,
right,
you
so
want me
we're
to do
going
it from the beginning?
yeah, from the beginning.
From the beginning of this meeting. You can't do a little something while I try to do it.
Oh, well, I was going to start the meeting with the gong, the third eye meditation, and just,
Then you'll probably, if you want to do that, then you'll probably have to do it with what you've got. I'll need a bit more notice next time.
all right. I don't know if, I wonder if I can do it. I wonder if I can play it while, no, it won't play while we're on this, will it? If I play my Facebook on my computer while I'm talking on my computer, will it work or not?
No, you should just do it the way you did it because we last time we did take care of the background sound. You know what I mean? Last time we did that on your settings,
Yeah.
so you should be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be good.
All right.
Oh,
Oh,
thank
shit.
you.
All right. Oh, it's playing already. So, all right. So I'm going to play this. This is sort of like, well, it's kind of experimental, but when I listened back to it, I did get a good harmonic like here, and I didn't have a title for it um, when I first did it. Like I didn't create or make the thing you're about to hear with the gongs and the bowl with anything in mind, right? With any particular thing. It was just like I just want to sit in a space. It was really quiet. I just wanted to sit in a space and just see what comes through. And then, because you got to give everything a title to upload it to YouTube. So I just called it Third Eye Focal Meditation because that's where it affected me when I listened back to it. So the whole point of third eye, right? It's a much misunderstood and it gets bandied about a lot in spiritual circles. Oh, third eye this and third eye that. Third eye is really nothing, right? It's a way of seeing if you understand it correctly, right? To see with your third eye is simply to perceive correctly. And I've had everybody telling me in my own journey, I've had people talking about, oh, my friend's third eye opened and this happened and that happened. Well, your third eye is open all the time as a sense of things, right? You have this constant connection to God through the Holy Spirit, but it's learning to use it, learning how to first recognize it and use it that actually avails you of what it really is, right? And it's a way of seeing. When Jesus says in the Course, you see the body but perceive the spirit, it's a way of perceiving the spirit. Now, when you're in transition, when you're having a spiritual process going on, like a conscious one, like we are, that way of perceiving the spirit tends to be a little bit intermittent or a lot intermittent. especially when you're doing the workbook lessons and you'll be like, oh, I didn't do my lesson today and this and that and the other. And you realize how much you're really not participating consciously in what it is that's for your own greater good, right? You tend to forget because mind is of the forgetting. When you reach a point where you've had a shift in consciousness, you're doing your lessons and everything seems to be sort of flowing and you're in the Zen sort of zone, if there is a Zen zone. I mean, the idea of Zen means there is no Zen, but if you're in that zone, then you're starting to walk and talk and see and think Christ-minded, right? There's a recognition that my brother is not a body and that I'm interacting with my body, their body, whatever, but I'm not fooled by the appearances. I'm not fooled by what I think I'm seeing with my body's eyes. I'm looking beyond that and seeing the Christ in my brother, and I'm glad. I'm remembering that my brother and I share a single source, come from a single reality, etc. All right? And that I hold in my heart and in my mind as my highest appraisal, my highest vision, my highest perception of things. And that's it. That's as high as you can go in the world. You may have epiphanies, you may have revelations and things that show you the true nature of that as you go along. Jesus says you may have all sorts of experiences, right? But Christ's vision is simply a way of seeing. So your third eye, when your third eye is open, it's really a statement that my way of seeing has become stable. I don't get sucked back into the drama anymore. I don't get sucked back into the dream of judgment and all of this kind of stuff. I'm just seeing the Christ, just seeing the perfection of God's creation beyond the illusion of the physical. Okay, it's an awareness, if you like. So there are many tools and many ins and outs of the spiritual path, and some of them you'll find work for you really well, and some you'll find like, no, I don't really resonate with that. That's really not for me. But I've had this calling for these gong bloody things for quite some time. And I got sick of fighting it. It's like I got sick of putting it off, and it's like, oh, I keep coming back to these gongs, and like Tina knows the whole story, but eventually these gongs just turned up in this shop where I wasn't expecting to find gongs, but I guess it was a gong shop in the end. So, and now we've got this thing. So the other night I was sitting with these gongs and this bowl thing, and I don't know what the hell they're about. They've never been part of my journey, right? I remember many years ago going to a Buddhist temple in Brisbane for a little while. I went for 3 or 4, what would you call them, participations or services or something. And then in Vietnam also I went to a Buddhist temple there a couple of times, and I have Buddhist friends and whatever, and they're always like all about the music and the sounds and the whole thing like that, and chanting and everything. And I've never really gotten into all of that. It's never been part of my thing. When I did, I had a more profound sort of relationship with Krishna consciousness, and bhajans and things like that were much more my way of experiencing that side of things. But these gongs have come along. So the other night I'm sitting there and I just opened my mind to Jesus, and I'm like, all right, Jesus, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here with these gongs. They're difficult to play. If you hit them softly, they make one tone. If you hit them hard, they make another tone. If you hit them in the center, they make a slightly different tone to if you hit them from the edge. And it's like, I'm sure there must be an art to it or a knack to it. And then I got this bowl. Tina showed me this thing about this bowl, so I went and bought a bowl. And it's like, I don't know what the hell about a bowl. So I'm sitting here with these things, and this meditation came out. And when I offered it to Jesus, when I asked Jesus for help with it, I said, just give me something I can use, something simple. And all I got, the first one I did, this isn't the first one, this is the second or third one, but this one I knew would be one that I would play. The first one or two, I knew they would be a dislodgement meditation, right? Everybody who comes to spirituality generally comes to it because they think it's going to be a nice and beautiful path in life and whatever, which it is eventually when you get through all your crap, right? But in the transition, you go through all your crap and you get dislodged from one perception of things to another until finally you reach this sort of green grass beside the still waters kind of sense of things, and you realize that all that crap is no longer affecting you, which is nice. So this is a dislodgement meditation. I only call it a third eye meditation because that's where I was feeling it when I was listening to it back. And it's recorded on Dolby, so it should be a fairly good sound. So sit quietly, close your eyes. It only goes for 8 minutes. And just take a few deep breaths. If the sound is not fantastic, I apologize. We're doing the best with what we've got. Just try to really focus. There are some subtle tones. There are some off tones. There's 2 off tones. And there are harmonics. I focus on the harmonics, and you'll hear them from the gongs and from the bell. Right? So there are many, many inflections, I guess, in this piece. Try to listen into it. Try not to identify each individual sound. Oh, that's a gong. Oh, that's the bowl, whatever. Just try to listen into it beyond analysis and beyond the thinking about it, and just allow yourself to experience it. Okay, and just see where it goes. Close your eyes. Take a few breaths. We're on the loop there. If you've ever been to a proper Buddhist monastery, I've never been to an actual monastery, but plenty of temples. There's a big one. Well, actually, I have. The biggest one I've been to is Nantian. Well, it's still a temple, but Nantian Temple in it's near Wollongong in Australia. It's the biggest Buddhist establishment in the southern hemisphere. And before the monks go into meditation or into prayer, they usually play a lot of very raucous sounds as a form of music to drive away evil spirits. That's the ancient reasoning for it. But when you understand that the evil spirits per se are in your own mind, then all that's actually is occurring is that you're allowing something outside of your expectation to dislodge you for a moment from any fixed perception so that you can enter into the prayer or the meditation without any preconceived ideas or previous expectations of what you think it should be like or what it's about. I mean, if you've never been to, let's say, a temple before, a Buddhist temple, you cannot not really go in there without having some preconceived notion. Oh, this is where the guys all shave their heads, and this is where they all wear orange robes, and they're all vegetarian or whatever. And, you know, you've probably got a reason for going there because you've looked into it. But the very fact that you've looked into it and made a decision to go there based on those reasons builds up in you a narrative, builds up this preconceived idea of what things are and how things might be, and then you experience it. And then if you were to go to another temple, let's say at a different time, it might be slightly different, and you'd be like, oh, they didn't do this at the other place, you know, and you'd have all these sort of judgmental narratives going on about for or against. It doesn't matter whether you like it or don't like it, right? It's simply the fact that the mind is holding on to a fixed idea about what something might be or what something should be or the potential or the expectation, rather than entering into it completely open-minded with no idea what anything's for. Right? Now, that's the same when you realise that you are the temple and that the altar is within you. That's the same when you go to your own prayer and your own meditation. You may have been doing some sort of spiritual work for a long, long time, and you'll have told yourself, oh, I use this particular prayer and I have this kind of meditation that I like, and I learnt this from this particular teacher, and this particular teacher has more value to me than that particular teacher, or this book versus that book, and you'll have all of this stuff, and none of it's helpful. Right? Because here and now, in this moment, here and now, this is a brand new moment. And if I drag the past into it, in any regard, even in my spiritual regard, then I'm not actually entering the moment completely open. I'm not actually allowing myself to stand in total vulnerability, total openness, total defenselessness, because I'm still holding something in this hand. I have people all the time on social media that say to me, oh, Ken Wapnick says this, or such and such other teacher says that, and I immediately exit those conversations because they're comparative conversations. They're not actually flowing conversations. They're looking for a way to defend a fixed perspective and looking for proof on the physical level that that perspective has brought them so far is worthy. Right? I'm telling you, no perspective, not even my perspective on things is worthy, because you have your own relationship with the Holy Spirit. You have your own relationship with the Holy Spirit. My only purpose is to help you to become more and more aware of that. Right? That's it. I'm pretty much a redundant entity from the moment you meet me to the moment you decide you don't need me anymore. I'm always in a state of redundancy. My sole purpose is to give you as much of my learning as I can, so that finally you'll be sitting there in your lounge room or wherever you are saying, I've heard it, I know what this guy's going to say. I've got this now, right? And at that point, I'm completely happy. I'm satisfied. I've given away all my everything I've got to give. And I don't know if I can find it again. I was just actually reading that in here. Oh, there you go. Just opened straight at the page. But I'm just going to read this. This is from the White edition. I can't tell you what chapter or page because it doesn't have chapters or pages. So you just have to listen. It's about teaching and learning, okay? No one questions the intimate connection of learning and memory. Learning is impossible without memory, since it cannot be consistent unless it is remembered. That is why the Holy Spirit is a lesson in remembering. Right? The lesson that you're remembering with the Holy Spirit is what you've forgotten, not remembering temporal things, right? Those are just intermediate sort of temporary crutches that you'll lean on for a while. Okay. We said before that he teaches remembering and forgetting, but the forgetting aspect is only to make the remembering consistent. You forget to remember better. You will not understand, listen to this, you will not understand his translations while you listen to two ways of perceiving them. Therefore, you must forget or relinquish one to understand the other. All right. Now, the Holy Spirit only teaches in this moment, in this present moment. If you have another way that you think you can learn in this moment other than through the Holy Spirit, you must relinquish it. Otherwise, you're not going to learn from the Holy Spirit, because life is the lesson. Life is the lesson. And you can't find life yesterday or tomorrow. It's now. It's here and now. This is the lesson being learned. If you think you've heard this, and I'll just use the Course in Miracles in context, but if you think you've heard of a Course in Miracles before, you're kidding yourself. You never have. I don't care how many copies of the book, how many times you've read it, how many times you've done the lessons. You've never even picked it up before. Try to get a sense of how, like, omnipresent that statement is. You've never heard of it, never picked it up before. Despite that your mind will attempt to convince you that you have. This moment is the only moment there is. Everything else is remembered or anticipated. Your memory tells you, I've picked this up before. I know this book. I've read this 5 times. I've done the workbook 25 years in a row. Whatever. No, you haven't. And if you think you have, then you haven't actually done the workbook, because that's what the workbook tells you, that you haven't done this before, that there is only this moment. This moment is the moment that we're only concerned about entering into. My words are a distraction from it. They're talking around it. Imagine it like being a hole in front of you, and you're a little child and you want to jump in that hole because it's full of water. It's going to make a big splash, right? But instead of jumping in the hole, you're talking about it to your friends. Let's jump in the hole. And you kind of wait to see who jumps first, because you don't know how deep it is. Right? But it's like when the talking about it is sort of like the precursor to jumping in. Talking about awakening is part of the precursor of awakening. It cannot not be for 99.9% of people, unless you've got an extremely special mission on earth like Jesus had 2,000 years ago, and you just sort of born into it. In a certain sense, you are born into it, but it comes in unawareness and creeps up on you, and all of a sudden, how the hell did I even get a hold of this book? Where did this book come from? as if you didn't know. You will not understand his translations while you listen to two ways of perceiving them. Therefore, you must forget or relinquish one to understand the other. This is the only way you can learn consistency so that you can finally be consistent. Right? Opening that third eye or seeing with vision. It's about consistency. Not just seeing my brother as the Christ sometimes when it suits me, but all the time. Seeing everyone as the Christ everywhere, all the time, looking beyond all the stories, all the dreams, all the illusions, all the visions of nonsense, and seeing the truth. Right? It's a way of seeing. What can the perfect consistency of the kingdom mean to the confused? It is apparent that confusion interferes with meaning and therefore prevents the learner from appreciating it. And appreciating, I would say that's an understatement. I don't know what word to use instead of appreciating, but man, it is so beautiful to see the Christ in all your brothers as a way of being. Because there's nothing enters into that way of seeing that disturbs it, that disrupts it. It's always perfect. It's always divine. And to live a divine life, to have that divine vision and to master it and to know that you have it, I guess you can appreciate it. There is no confusion in the kingdom because there is only one meaning. This meaning comes from God and is God. Because it is also you, you share it and extend it as your Creator did. This needs no translation because it is perfectly understood, but it does need extension because it means extension. Communication is perfectly direct and perfectly united. It is totally without strain because nothing discordant ever enters. That is why it is the kingdom of God. It belongs to him and is therefore like him. That is its reality, and nothing can assail it. To heal is to liberate totally. We once said there is no order of difficulty in miracles because they are all maximal expressions of love. This has no range at all. The non-maximal appears to have a range. This is because it seems to be meaningful to measure it from the maximum and identify its position by how much it is not there. Actually, this does not mean anything. It is like negative numbers in the concept that the concept can be used theoretically, but it has no application practically. It is true that if you put 3 apples on the table and then take them away, the 3 apples are not there. But it is not true that the table is now minus 3 apples. If there is nothing on the table, it does not matter what was there in terms of amount. The nothing is neither greater nor less because of what is absent. That is why all and nothing are dichotomous, without a range. That is why all and nothing are dichotomous, without a range. This is perfectly clear in considering psychological tests of maximal performance. You cannot interpret the results at all unless you assume either maximal motivation or no motivation at all. Only in these two conditions can you validly compare responses, and you must assume the former because if the latter were true, the subject would not do anything. Given variable motivation, he will do something, but you cannot understand what it is. The results of such tests are evaluated relatively, assuming maximal motivation, but this is because we are dealing with abilities where degree of development is meaningful, right, which is the opposite of your Christhood. This does not mean that what the ability is used for is necessarily either limited or divided. Yet one thing is certain. Abilities are potentials for learning, and you will apply them to what you want to learn. Learning is effort, and effort means will. We have used the term abilities in the plural because abilities began with the ego, which perceived them as potentials for excelling. This is how the ego still perceives them and uses them, right? However, the ego can consider excelling to be in the negative, right? A lot of people will live their life in suffering, and subliminally they'll be satisfied with that, right? It's the nature of self-sabotage. Look how sick I am today. Look at my suffering, right? Or look how many people I upset today, and that'll be a benchmark of success. All these stupid people, look at them. I'm gonna make them look at themselves. You know, that sort of thing. So, all right, the ego still perceive them as potentials for excelling. This is how the ego still perceives them and uses them. All right, now listen to this. The ego does not want to teach everyone all it has learned, because that would defeat its purpose. Therefore, it does not really learn at all. The Holy Spirit teaches you to use what the ego has made to teach the opposite of what the ego has learned. The kind of learning is as irrelevant as is the particular ability which was applied to the learning. You could not have a better example of the Holy Spirit's unified purpose than this course. The Holy Spirit has taken very diversified areas of your learning and has applied them to a unified curriculum. The fact that this was not the ego's reason for learning is totally irrelevant. Right? Everyone who comes to this course, everybody who comes to God does so on false premises. Everybody. Because the nature of approach is a false premises itself. The nature of prayer is a false premises itself. You don't need healing. You are already perfect as God created you. The idea of healing is false. It's kind of like a dipping a toe, you know. It's like, well, let me just see if I want to believe that I'm perfect. Let me just check that out. I'll go through this process and I'll heal myself of this particular thing. And if I have a miracle, then yeah, maybe I'll believe that there's a God, and maybe I'll have to believe I'm perfect if I'm part of God's creation, blah, blah, blah. But the giving up of denial is never completely a whole activity of mind, because to do so ends the dream. To do so relieves the mind of any potential left in the belief of separation from God. If I totally surrender right now and have a direct face-to-face with God, if I experience myself as perfect, then all the excuses I've got for why I'm guilty or why I'm afraid or why I'm anything other than perfect goes flying out the window. And I've got no back door in times where I feel like I'm being confronted by anything. Life, confronted by life. Right? The human being always has a back door. Yes, God, but. Yes, God, but. Let me just, and then, you know, there's always an excuse, an excuse, an excuse. All that the transformative process does is gets you to look at your excuses and realize that one excuse is not different from another. It's all the same excuse. It's yes, but. There's always that hole in front of you to jump into, and it's like, well, I'll let everybody else jump in first. And if everybody else comes out of that hole okay, then maybe I'll give it a go. And everybody else comes out of the hole and they're all okay, and they're looking at you. It's your turn. And it's like, oh, it's like, anyone ever done a parachute jump? It's like you go in those aeroplanes. When I was 30, I did one. There was four of us, and they strap you to each other, right? So you got the instructor or whatever, and you're strapped to the front of the instructor, and there was four of us, four couples of people, and I was hoping like heck I was going to be the last one, like the two of us was going to jump the last. And then when we loaded into the plane, I was the second last in, so I knew that I would be the second one out, right? Because there's just one little door and we're all behind each other. And I'm like, this is not good. Like all my plans went out the window, like instantly out the window, and I had to jump. But it's sort of like that. This is your time. How long you want to take to jump is up to you. All that's ever happening in transformation is I'm looking at the idea of saying yes without actually saying yes totally. It's a partial yes. So you go through this process of looking at individual relationships then within the framework of the overall relationship, which you could jump into all at once, but in the idea of the individual relationships within it, well, let me just tackle this little bit in faith and just see how I go with this, right? And anyone who's ever truly realized that this is a journey of faith or a journey of miracle-mindedness, which is the same thing, and begins to enjoy that, automatically begins to look for opportunities to apply faith into. Right? It's like, all right, I see that I'm here to practice faith. I'm here to build my faith. Now, how can I do that? Building my faith doesn't occur through attending Zoom meetings. It doesn't occur through reading Course in Miracles books. It doesn't occur through any of those things, right? It occurs when I'm confronted with a situation that I have no alternative with but to approach it in faith. I drove my car across a flooded bridge and now I'm in trouble. Right? Or I borrowed some money off a mafia guy and now I can't pay it back. Any one of those situations that's totally compromising, It's like my safety and my integrity and everything's on the line here. I've got no other way out of this except by faith. Right? That's where you practice faith. But faith is its own reward. When you begin to practice listening to, I just posted it on my Facebook actually, I don't know his name, he's a politician in America, the guy that's, I can't think of his name, but...
Robert Kennedy. You're frozen too.
Kennedy, right. So Kennedy was assassinated, and then the other Kennedy, the one that's Annie posted it up about his addiction time to heroin when he was, from the time he was 14, a year after his father was shot, and he got addicted to heroin. And this guy's talking about the synchronicity, right? He found this book by Carl Jung, right? And Carl Jung, incredibly spiritual person. Carl Jung's talking in the book, obviously the book's called Synchronicity. Carl Jung's talking about the nature of synchronicity as being a language of God, or a way that people perceive the activity of what he was calling God in his life, or universal flow in his life. When you have a leap of faith, right, when you take a leap of faith, you're confronted with something, you can't get out of it, and all you got is like, bloody hell, I never really pray, but I'm going to pray. I'm going to ask for help in this. And then you come out of the other side of it and something happens that you weren't expecting, and your problem is suddenly solved or fixed, right? And you're on the other side of it. You look back and you go, I would never have seen that coming. I would have never have seen that solution, right? It's like when I was hitchhiking and I got picked up. I was just about to give up. I knew it was an experiment of faith because that's why I was hitchhiking. I wanted to get down to see my friends who were a couple of hours away. I had no money, no way to get there, no way to get back to my house. I was all the way out to the highway, hot and thirsty and everything. And I prayed. And I said, God, I said, I'll wait for 12 more cars. Right, 12's my spiritual number, I guess, 12 disciples. Whatever. 12 more cars. If 12 more cars goes past and nobody picks me up, I'm just going to try and go home. I'll go back to my house. Fuck it. This whole thing's over. 11 cars went by. Nobody even slowed down, picked me up. I'm looking like death, right? I look like some long dreadlock hair, hippie, my baggy pants, and like probably had a tie-dye shirt. I don't remember, and I'm standing there with no shoes with my thumb out on the side of the highway, and this white frickin' Mercedes-Benz convertible pulls up with all the gold trims and everything like that, and this young mid-20s kind of couple, all in white sort of linen clothes, looking beautiful. They were like out of a Vogue magazine or something. They were just perfect. They pulled up, jump in, and they took me all the way to where I was going in Byron Bay, and we had an incredibly enlightening conversation all the way, right? Later, when I stopped to think about that and reflect on that moment of faith, that prayer under the tree there on the side of the highway, I'm like, fuck, man, I live in this rural area. Every car that goes by is like either a beat-up farmer's ute or some kind of industrial-style vehicle. And these guys in this brand new white Mercedes, like, where did they come from? Like, literally, I reckon they just came out of a tear in the Matrix and just pulled up, like Jesus sent them or somebody sent them or the angels sent them. And they pulled up and gave me a lift, just for me to understand the nature of faith through prayer, right? It was so obvious. It's like blind Freddy could have seen that, as my dad would say. But it's like when you look back on those moments that you apply the prayer for faith, apply prayer in your life in faith, you'll look back and you'll go, I couldn't have seen that coming. I don't know how, that was a miracle, or that was synchronicity, to put it in Carl Jung's words. Right, but Carl Jung associated his synchronicity with the divine, with something unknown. He knew there was another language to the universe happening, but he called it God because I guess everybody calls it God. But so it's the same with you guys. You're going to have these relationships that you're in. You're going to have these situations that confront you. My teacher used to call them ring pass knots. Like the magician, and they've got the ring on the rope and there's a knot. You can't get the ring past the knot, and it's like, how the hell am I going to get this ring past the knot? I've got to get it to the other end of the rope. A magician, obviously, it's a magic trick. But you're going to have those same sort of paradoxical or catch-22 kind of situations in your life, in your relationships, and you're going to try to solve them every which way you can in your mind. Right? Because the ego doesn't want to give over total predominance to the miracle. It's like, well, if I just let this go totally and just say fuck it and walk away, then what's going to happen? Obviously the situation's going to still be there. I'm still going to have to deal with it. But there's a realization I can't deal with it on my own terms. The terms are beyond me. I've got to let go. It's the same thing exactly entering into this moment. This moment, here and now. I can't work it out on my own terms. I tell myself that it looks the same. Oh, it looks like people, situations and events, and this happens and that happens and everything sort of happens, and it's just another situation. But is it? Or is it life? If I'm a student of life, and life is only available in the present moment, my awareness of life or the presence of life is available in this moment, which includes me, call that being self-aware, self-conscious, whatever the hell you want to call it, then how am I going to view it with my past references or my future expectations? Because everything in my spiritual discipline, everything Course in Miracles, in Zoom meeting, everyone's always telling me, let go of the past, give up the future. Live in the present. If I'm truly in the present, I've got no reference point for it. And that's going to be scary. That's going to be total terror. To find yourself in a moment in time and space with no reference point, nothing to hang on to. No safety zone, no comfort zone, no nothing. Just this moment, right? And it always boils down to just me and God. That's it. It's just me, just God, the created and the creator together at last, right? Now, ego's like you ever seen those eels in Vietnam? They catch the eels and they wriggle out of it. You got to get them with two hands. They're just wriggly, slippery things, right? That's the ego. It always tries to come back in, which is why you need mind training. Ego always tries to kick in and it'll make up a little story. Oh, this moment. I remember Eckhart Tolle talking about this moment. I remember my teacher Ted talking about this moment. And you'll look for some kind of reference point, right? But to truly be in this moment is to have no reference point at all. But you have to train yourself that that's okay, that that's what you want. I want to be in this moment with no reference. I want to be scared out of my freaking mind. I'm told that I'm undertaking a journey into fear, and I'm telling myself, yes, I want to undertake a journey into fear because I want to deal with all my fearfulness. I want to deal with all my blocks to self-love. I want to deal with all that stuff. And then when the shit hits the fan, all of a sudden the eels come back in and it's like you got to tell yourself, no, this is okay. I can go through this. I don't need to grip hold of anything. I don't need a safety zone or a comfort zone or nothing. I've got this because I've got a connection somewhere within me to the divine, which we're calling it the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of wholeness, that I can defer to. Right? The reason that it's safe to defer to the Holy Spirit is because you have no clue what that is and you can't screw it up. I can't corrupt the Holy Spirit because it's outside of my field of expertise, being a conscious being for a second in this physical experience. I can't put any labels to it. I've just got this general idea that there's this thing sort of, if you look at it as a vertical thing, there's this thing above me that's called the Holy Spirit, or this thing that's connected to me called the Holy Spirit. I like the idea that it's like a telephone line. And, you know, in the old days, you would have the what do they call it? They pull the things in and out and connect you to who you want to go to, the operator, right? So you would pick up your phone and you would call and you would get the operator at the words. What do they call that? Like the receptionist or whatever. And
switchboard operators?
Switchboard, that's the one, switchboard operator. So you would get the switchboard operator and they'd say, who do you want to talk to, please? And you say, well, I want to talk to my dad or my auntie or whatever. And they go, just a second, and they'd unplug you from the switchboard and they'd plug you into the connection with you, right? And that's the Holy Spirit. They do the work. They connect you, right? Now, the Holy Spirit only has one plug. Just go straight to God, straight to the universal force, the flow. Because in any problem, in any situation you find yourself in the world that's perplexing or seems to disturb your own peace of mind, you've only got two ways to deal with it. Enter into this moment completely open and connect to the flow, or struggle about with the eels trying to hang on to one that you think you can control, right? Trying to control your own agenda and drive your own bus. I'm telling you, take your hands off the wheel. Take your foot off the accelerator. Just like let go. Just let life take you. Jump in the river and see where it goes. Right? That's moment to moment. This moment, the next moment, the next moment. If I jump into the river and instantly regret it because the current sweeps me away, then I didn't actually jump into the river with any kind of willingness. There was always this sort of regret or always this sort of hanging on. You've got to be done with watching life from the bank. You've got to be done with that. in any given relationship or situation, you've got to reach that point where you see, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what life's about in this relationship, in that relationship, in this situation, with that person, etc. I don't know. I'm just going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask for help with this. And when it comes around that I have to interact with it or do whatever I've got to do with it, I'm not going to interfere. Right? And if your prayer is sincere, you won't interfere. You'll realize you've asked for faith, and you'll realize that this is that opportunity for faith that you've been asking for coming around, smacking you in the face, and all you got to do is take that step. All you got to do is say yes. If you're still fearful of it, you'll say yes with a no, and you won't get the full result. If you're done with the world, if you're done with that situation, trying to figure it out and just again and again hitting your head against that wall, you'll say yes and it'll be a total yes. That's like what we just read, right? You're either going to approach everything from either a total yes or a total no. Being in the middle, being wishy-washy isn't really either. Right? Saying yes but feeling no. Saying yeah, oh, well, Dave told me I should say yes. Fuck that. Don't listen to Dave, listen to you. Right? What am I saying? Am I saying yes? Am I truly hearing what Dave's saying? Am I truly listening to Jesus? Am I truly living my spiritual path? Or am I quickly ducking back to do this, look in the book and just make sure it's okay that I say yes to something? Because eventually you just got to let go. And that's all you're ever practicing. That's all you're ever doing is letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. And for most people, letting go of control is one of the hardest things that, it's like there's always, what about? What if this happens? What if that happens? It's just like, all right, well, stay there on the bank then. Stay on the bank until finally you just say, fuck it. Because you will, because you did, because salvation is already complete in you. That's your saving grace. It doesn't matter what you might think about it. At a certain point, your awakening will happen because it already has happened. All you're ever doing is truing up to where you're actually at, not where you think you're at. All you're ever doing is truing up to the true nature of yourself, not the nature of yourself that you think you are. You jump in the river and it goes around the corner and around another corner and around another corner. And it's like, well, you already know you can't get out. The bank is steep, the current's too fast. You may have doubts about where the river goes. What if it goes off a waterfall? What if? And there's always going to be those what ifs. But you don't really have any choice but to let go because you're already in the river. It's like, well, whatever, I'll have to face that when it comes. In faith, the same as everything else. The same as everything else. What if somebody goes crazy and pushes the red button? What if? What if a meteorite, you see that thing, you see NASA now reckons we're going to get hit by a meteorite big enough to take out a whole city. It's funny. It's like playing one of those Xbox games, It's just like, what the fuck next is going to happen, Like, what next? It's like, but they're either opportunities for miracle-mindedness or they're opportunities to be fearful, It's like, well, let me put myself in a position of total fearfulness for a second and just get it over with. Right, get it done so that I can live the rest of my life. Yeah, what the fucking asteroid? Remember that? Have you guys seen what was that movie where Ryan Gosling, where he fights himself at the end, the big version of himself, muscles and what was that movie? It's like a digital Free Guy.
Free Guy.
Yeah, it's in Free Guy. So in Free Guy, he's got his friend in the bank, right? So Ryan, what I think that's his name, Ryan, whatever. He starts having these little epiphanies. He starts noticing that there's some sort of weirdness about his world that everybody else just accepts and takes for granted, and they don't really question anything. They're just doing their part, whatever, including his friend. They work in the bank together, I think. I can't remember the actual story, but his friend's definitely a security guard in the bank. And they go for lunch together, they have brewskis together, and they do all this stuff together, right? So Ryan has this thing where he starts to have an awakening. He doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know he's having an awakening. He just starts to have these synchronicities and these strange things happening. And he's like, did you see that? You know, and does this stuff happen to you? And whatever. And his friend's just like, nope, let's just do our jobs and be happy workers and, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And eventually it gets to the point where Ryan Gosling peeks behind the curtain and understands that they don't actually exist. That they're not really real. Right? And he starts to have this kind of a meltdown about it. Like, well, I'm not fucking real. Why would I do anything? What's the point of my life? You know, like he has this whole freaking like, and he goes to his friend and he tries to explain to his friend, you know, like it's become his existential problem, like this whole crisis happening. And his friend's like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't experienced the same things you've experienced. But all I know is that we've got this beautiful moment together right here and now where we can just be in love and just totally enjoy the gift of our life, of our living. You know? And right there you've got the dichotomy, right? You've got the one guy that's completely stressed and anxious about life all of a sudden, and the other guy that's just like, well, if it rains, I'm just going to dance in the rain. Because, like, what the heck else are you going to do? There's an asteroid coming. What of it? Eventually, this is like terminal anyway. You're going to lay the body down, whether that's peacefully at home in your own bed, like Kevin, or out there on the war front, you know, like just... Kevin's always in bed, so I'm just assuming there, Kevin, forgive me. or out there in some total disaster, like an asteroid lands on your head. What the heck? Right? You already know all this stuff when you come here. You already know from a very, very early age that eventually it ends because everything in the world has a beginning and an ending. Now, most people like to think, well, I hope I don't have a long-suffering, horrible ending. Right? And that tends to be what you think you're afraid of. But it's not actually what you're afraid of. Right? You love the long-suffering, horrible ending. Look at me and my suffering. Look at my horrible ending. Why can't I just pass away peacefully in my sleep like Kevin one night and probably dreaming about puppy dogs and fields of flowers, you know? Like, why do I have to struggle? And, you know, but you love that shit. It's like the ego's last slippery eel. I just want one more story, one more horrible story, just to bloody, you know, right up until the point of no more breaths possible. Right? But that's not what you're afraid of. You're afraid of life. You're afraid of God. You're afraid to love yourself unconditionally. That's the fear, because that ends the dream. And this dream is like an incredible sparkling jewel. This dream, for all of its diverse polarity of good and bad, right and wrong, better and worse, and all of that. You know that old saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone? When it's gone, right? If you've ever been overseas to another country and you've had even just a short holiday and you get back and you look back on it and, you know, trying to work out the languages and the currency and how to get around, all that shit's hard work and it kind of ruins your holiday to some regard. But when you get back and you're looking at it, you're like, wow, what an incredible adventure that was. I did it. I actually did it. I got through that whole thing. I went there, I did the whole thing, and I got back, and wow, I've got this incredible appreciation for myself being able to do that and the experience I had in the whole thing. You don't want that to end. Immediately, you start looking up another holidays on the computer. Where can I go next? I love this feeling. right? I love this vibe. Now, in a cosmic divine sense, that's what the world is. I want a better dream, but I don't want to end the dream, right? I want a forgiven world, but I don't want out of the world. I don't want to completely just go back to the formless realm, because then what? I will never get to see the pyramids, or I'll never get to complain about the bad coffee at the cafe at the pyramids, or whatever. The experience finishes, right? So in my own mind, let's say I have an experience some years ago of the divine nature of my truth, and it ends everything. Everything's all of a sudden stops. Boom. And it's like, fuck. Now what? Now what do? I know the world's not real. I know it's all fake. So there's two possibilities. I can either bemoan that and whinge about it. Oh, Jesus, you could have done this right at the end when I was like 90 years old or something and shown me all this shit, you know, or I simply get on with it and appreciate that wow, because it still is wow. It still has that wonder about it where you look at it, and even though now I know for a fact it's fake, it's like, this is incredible how fake it is, right? It's just beyond comprehension. It's like it's so freaking fake that how did I not see it before, right? How did I not see this before? And you kind of live in this wonder. You live in this state. You know, when Jesus says, unless you become children, children live in wonder. They're just like, wow, everything they're learning for the first time. It's wow, it's incredible, right? Being born again is like that, but kind of like the negative of that. Wow, I see why everything's so fucked up now. I see why all my efforts here amount to nothing. I just got a hill of beans at the end of it. You know, it's like, now it all makes sense. And you'll have people like showing up and they'll be like, how come you're so happy? There's a meteorite coming, like, and you're out here fucking with your bloody umbrella as if that's some sort of a defense against it, you know, like this divine parody of, like, it's, but my umbrella is as much a defense against the meteorite as anything. I could dig a bunker, you know, like I could dig a big underground bunker and go down 50 floors down and I'd still die, you know, like it's funny stuff. So that I'm there with my umbrella, my metaphysical umbrella, and it's like, I'm good. I've got this Holy Spirit umbrella here, and it's like everybody's running around. Meteorite's coming, meteorite's coming. Like, whatever. And it's like Trinity, my daughter and I were going to Japan, right, in July. She's always wanted to go, so we're going to go. I'm taking her there, and we're looking at all the videos about Japan, you know, like words that you should know and places you should visit and how to get around, all of that stuff. And I feel like I've got it under my hat now, like it's all good. Yep, as soon as we get off the airport, I know what I'm doing. We're all sorted, whatever, right? And she's like, Dad, we need this particular rail pass card. We need, like, she's 16. She's got, kids are all over it, right? We need this particular card. We've got to get these particular words, how to get to, where's the toilet, and da-da-da. She's got everything sorted. And I'm on board with it, right? I'm totally on board. I'm totally there for her, and I'm doing my own thing with it as well at the same time. And then I'm like, I don't think, like, this is just the other day, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't think I can watch any more of these freaking videos about Japan. I'm just going to tell her, you know, like, I don't need any more vids, bub. You know, we're good. You can just stop sending me links for things. Let's just go. We'll have this adventure together. And then I get this link the other day about the continental shelf off the coast of Japan. How they're expecting this massive, like, 8-point something earthquake. You know, it's going to be happening very soon, you know. And I remembered instantly the Truman Show, right? The Truman Show, how he could never get to Fiji, right? And then there's this, like, Western guy talking about earthquakes, and it's all official, and how many buildings fell down the last time one of these mega tsunami earthquake things happened, and how much this and that. Anyway, and I'm like, oh, my God, it's just like one thing after another with this world, you know. And then even this morning, I'm there and there's a Japanese guy and he's like, it was another one, like I guess the algorithm, but the synchronicity of things as well. It's kind of funny. And he's like, "Oh, earthquake coming! Tourist, be careful, earthquake!" And like all of this sort of stuff. And it's coming in between now and the next 60 years, right? So that's what they're predicting. So it's just a funny thing. But everything exists in the world as a state of potential. This could happen to me. This might happen. What if this doesn't happen? What if this goes wrong? Right? But God is always present. God is always present. God is here and now. Right? Now, there's a beautiful line in the Course that says, "I am in danger nowhere in the world." Right? The mind that walks with God, forget it. You'll be fine. Even to the point of the health of your body, right? So those who serve the Holy Spirit, their body will have enough health and enough nutrition, vitamins, exuberance, whatever, to fulfill their obligation to the atonement, right? So there's nothing to worry about, right? In the big picture, your awakening, there's nothing to worry about. All you're ever doing, all I'm ever doing is learning to let go. Let go and let God. Let go and let God. I'm just going to trust the universe today. I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like whatever. I'm just going to trust the universe. Right? And I guarantee in that moment where you say yes to that, that's when your true life begins. That's when everything actually starts. When you allow yourself to step into that fearful what if, and with I don't give a fuck. Right? I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to say yes to life, and I'm going to take that step, and whatever happens, happens. And the potential for whatever happens is going to rocket through your mind as all of the possibilities of things that you think could happen. And you're training your mind not to look at it, not to engage with it, not to examine the train of oddly assorted thoughts going past. It's like, no, I'm not gonna look at those train. And it's like, I think it was the last Zoom I think it was the last video I put on YouTube. If you could sit as an observer, if you could sit back on a hillside, let's say, and down below you was a railway track, and a train comes along, and it's got all these different carriages, and each carriage has got different things in it, right? Each of those carriages represents a thought you have about yourself, right? If you could sit back as the observer and just watch them all go past, they wouldn't upset you at all, right? There's me. That's the carriage that says arsehole. I'm an arsehole. Yep, I can see that. I'm an arsehole. I've done that, or I'm a bitch, or I'm a whatever. And there's me that's really lovely at times, Yep, there's me that's really lovely. I've seen that sometimes I can be really compassionate and whatever. So, and there's all these different things, right? Jesus is saying, step back, let go. Let the train go past, because none of that's you. None of that is actually you. That's just the story of you that you've picked up and written about yourself since you've been here and brought with you when you came, actually. But let it go, right? Because what happens when you interact with one, you'll look at that carriage and you'll be like, oh, I remember that story of me being an arsehole, and that person did something and I did something back, and two wrongs don't make a right. And you'll end up in that puddle of guilt and that whole story, and it'll come back, and all of a sudden you're out of Christ-mindedness and you're back in analysis. You're back in the dream of suffering, struggle, pain, death, whatever, even if it's a good carriage, right? Because the good implies the bad, the yin implies the yang. You can't have one without the other, right? And you'll try to offset one aspect of your human characterisms with another one to make yourself not feel bad. All the while, the truth is still within you. Yeah, but the truth ends the dream. And you've got to realize that you're addicted to the dream. You've got to realize you love that shit. I love beating myself up, and I love patting myself on the back, because then I feel like I'm just one with everybody else. That's what we all do here, isn't it? Well, no, it's not actually. We don't all do that. Some of us practice total forgiveness, unconditional forgiveness, and are rewarded or experiential in the nature of unconditional love. The world never made sense to me. There wasn't anything about it I wanted. When I was a child in the 80s watching television and the great famine in Africa was happening, that just stabbed me in the heart. 11,000 babies every day dying from starvation. Their mothers have no milk in their breast because they've got no frickin' food. 11,000 babies a day dying, and they blare it on the television, right? It's like, and there I am with a big plate of food. I'm well off everything on my parents. Dad's got a job, like 2.4 kids, whatever. And I felt sick to my stomach. All of a sudden, I realized that the world was incredibly unfair. I was only like 12 years old, 13 years old, whatever. When Bob Geldof came on the scene and did Live Aid for Africa and the whole world was forced to pay attention, I felt so good. Bob Geldof became my first role model, I think, and after that I started joining protests in the forests against logging and mining and all these different environmental causes, the pollution of the river near me, cyanide pollution from a gold mine, and all this sort of stuff. But it drove me to that point. It drove me to that point of giving up. Because every tree that I saved here, another 10 acres was felled down somewhere else. For every river and fish that I saved here, some other disaster happened somewhere else in the world. And I began to see that there's no solution in the world. The world is a place, as Jesus says in the Course, whose purpose is to keep the problems that it holds out for you to solve. The world is a place whose purpose is to keep the problems that it holds out for you to solve. And it will present them with every generation in a new way, a new form, a new style, a new social aspect, a new environmental aspect, political aspect, again and again and again. It's like a house of horrors, right? It's like you go to the carnival and there's the house of horrors, and every now and again they put some new horrors in it. When they come around to your town next year and they set it all up again, oh, that ghost wasn't there last time. It's the same shit, right? The world is that. And you've got to learn to see it as that. Give up all hope where there is none and walk a new path. Right? Now, I can only say that so many times. You've got to see it for yourself. You've got to see what the world actually is about. You can move to a better part of the world, away from the problem zone. But your problems are going to manifest. If you see a problem, it's going to manifest again in a way you can recognize it, because you take your mind with you wherever you go, and the world you see is a production of your own mind, a projection. It's not actually out there, despite the 100% reality that it seems to have. It's only when you begin to doubt it, it's only when you begin to question it. If God created this world, well then fuck that, I don't want anything to do with that kind of a God. Because this world just sucks from start to finish. And you seem to scramble to find the little bit that you can control and hang on to that makes sense and offers you some sort of peace. And then even that, somebody comes along and builds a fence or puts a highway through it or whatever. So the true spiritual path is very confronting. Very confronting. It's not that the world wasn't confronting anyway, but now with a spiritual understanding, you're able to do those confrontations with a new point of focus, a new perspective on things. It's like, all right, well, I see that I normally look at these relationships and situations based on my personal education, preferences, and likes or dislikes about it. And that always just brings me back around again, right? Because judgment perpetuates the opportunity for judgment, right? But if I look at this situation based on, I don't know, I got no idea. I see that everything I've done up until now just results in the same thing. What if I step into a new moment? What if I just say, no, I don't know, and let's just see what happens, right? And allow that to be an act of faith. Then something else can happen. Something else can happen that begins to pull back the curtain, begins to show you the true option, the true nature of what an alternative is that you can learn to become dependent on. But you've got to keep up with it, because the ego will instantly, as soon as you have some sort of miraculous or faithful kind of intercession in your life and you go, wow, that was synchronicity, or that was serendipity, or that was whatever, or that was a miracle, the ego is going to be like, shh, stop talking such nonsense, right? And try to push it away and dumb it down, and then you'll forget about it, right? Because the mind is untrained. It doesn't automatically ascribe value where value is. It has to be taught where its value is again and again and again, because you learn to remember better by forgetting, which is what we just read. Right? When you're doing those workbook lessons and you go through those lessons and you be like, damn it, I forgot to do my lesson today. And you get to the whole thing and then you go back and you read your lesson and it says 10 times today, do this. And you go, like, oh man, I didn't even do it once. I did it in the morning and then I forgot. I went out and got completely caught up with my friends and the day, and I went to work and completely forgot to do my lesson. 10 times I missed the opportunity, right? And you're kind of like, you do this a lot, right? But that forgetting makes you remember better, right? The first year I went through the workbook, I got to lesson 260 something. I realized how full of shit I was. Something in the lesson triggered me and I went, oh man, I've been so half-hearted with all of these freaking lessons. I've just been reading them on the surface and doing them on the surface, and I haven't actually been putting my heart and soul into it. And the second year, where's Dana? You got it written on your arm? Oh, look, she's got it on her arm. There we go. The second year, I wrote it on my arm with a big indelible marker, the heading for the lesson every day. And I didn't forget. I did whatever it took to remember to do my damn lesson. And the result that I got doing that workbook the second year was incredible. Just incredible. Because I did it with the understanding that I'm full of shit. I don't really want to do these lessons. I'm half-hearted, I'm lackadaisical, I've got this malaise about me, this density about me that just convinces me that I'm doing the lesson when actually I'm not doing the lesson. I'm just reading it as if I'm reading a magazine at a transit stop waiting for my ride. I don't care what I'm reading, I'm just filling in time. And that's the human condition. The human condition is exactly that, filling in time. Colin, the Iceman cometh. That's good. I see you're having a bit of a shift there, Colin. I can see it in you. I can see it. Your whole energy is just like different now. You're still doing the ice swimming?
Yeah, but it's so much resistance now.
Good. Good. Well, push it to where you can. Like, just let that resist. You can see the resistance already. Let it come up totally. Let it come up totally. It won't be long. I guarantee you. 2 or 3 more sessions, and you'll be drawing a circle. Help me, Lord. Take this resistance from me. It's not about the ice swimming. It's the fact that there is resistance in there. Right? Resistance is always to purpose. Resistance is always to application. When you're young and the world hasn't smashed you around a lot, you don't have a lot of resistance. You're still quite optimistic and hopeful about things, you know. When you get to my age, you've been through the ringer and all the hope is kind of squeezed out of you. That's good, Colin. Good. All right, I'm going to play that. Oh, did you guys hear that okay, the gong thing, or was it just like not very good?
I think I can do it. You want me to do it?
All right, yeah, do it.
Let
So I
me
want you
see.
to hang on before you play it.
I
Just
got to
see
work
if
it
you can
out.
cue it up before you play the gongs and that again. Hopefully the sound will be better if Tina plays it directly here, but try to listen to the gong with the same idea we've been talking about of entering into this moment. Okay? In your mind, there's going to be this automatic kind of reference. Oh, this is the same gong thing we listened to at the start of the satsang. No, it isn't, because you're not the same person you were at the start of the satsang. You're slightly different. Something in you has become more aware, more attuned, more awakened to the presence of what's available in this moment, to the possibility of the miracle. Your mind, however, is going to attempt to tell you, oh yeah, I remember these gongs. I remember this bowl sound thing. Don't listen to that, right? Practice your mind training. Let go of that. Just let the train go past with all those thoughts on it and just be the observer, just be the listener. And if you're listening properly, you'll realize that what seems to be something you're listening to out there in an audio file is actually occurring in your own mind. There's no separation between the outer and the inner, because where are you actually hearing it? It's not out there on a stereo. It's in your conscious realm, in your conscious domain. If you don't clutter that conscious domain up with a whole bunch of thoughts, you'll hear the sounds, and it's not what the sounds are, it's the intonation behind the sounds that will begin to affect you. Right? Words are only symbols. Remember that. Words are symbols that represent something else. Same thing with sounds. When you go to an orchestra or a music concert or whatever, you go there and the musicians play the music and everything like that, and you're like, you can get caught up in, I love how the guy did the guitar, and I love how the drums, and I love how the violin or whatever, right? Or you can just enjoy the music, right? Now, when you just enjoy the music, you'll walk out of that concert feeling a certain way. You'll feel good, because that was the purpose of the concert, to feel good, not to sit there and analyze that guy hit an off note, or this guy did something and the lighting was shit, or the sound I couldn't see because I was in the wrong chair. All of these things, right? You'll just be in the total appreciation for the experience that you had, right? And that experience is what you are, because you are a state. You're not an effect of yourself. You are the state. You are the being, a present state of being. That's what you are. How you experience yourself in this world, in relativity, depends on the relationship you seem to be looking at between the cause and effect of your awareness and what you seem to be aware of. When you understand that it's always just the one thing, it's just love, and you don't define love, oh, love doesn't look like this, love doesn't look, yes it does, it looks like everything in here. This is crazy world. It can look like anything at all, but it's still love. But I can feel love in my heart. I can't adjudicate it in my mind, because what's loving to one person is insulting to another, right? It's always going to be relative. Oh, I've had a better experience of love than that. But if you feel it in your heart, it's like Jesus said in that thing we just read, all expressions of love are maximal. All expressions of love are maximal. If you feel a little bit of love, you're feeling the whole thing. You're feeling love. But love and judgment are mutually exclusive. So try to listen to this. Tina's going to play it now. Try to listen to this without any judgment. Just try to push it aside, as even if it's just only by a little bit you feel like you've been successful. right? It's the same thing with mind training. All right, let's have it, Tina. Close your eyes, take a breath, and just let it in. 8 minutes. Well, that's better. Good. That's a disruptive meditation. It's good, Inna. It's a disruptive meditation. It's not a calm, flowing meditation. It's designed to constantly bring the mind back from judgment by realizing when it is that you're judging. Oh, that was a loud one, or that resonance is prolonged. One of the best places to learn to meditate is next to a busy highway. Go and sit next to the trucks and the cars and the people beeping their horns and practice meditation. It's going to push you into a much deeper state. You're going to have to force yourself to focus so much harder than if you're sitting in a rainforest or somewhere like that quietly. The whole discipline, the whole devotion that this entails, in a sense, is pushing yourself to learn, is activating yourself. When you're a child and you're at school and you've got a big exam the next day, you have to force yourself to study because you have an incentive. You don't want to fail. But with spirituality, the incentive is unknown. It exists as a possibility until you begin to have glimpses or holy instants of realization and recognition. And you'll call it synchronicity, or that was a miracle, or something happened. And you want to keep up with that. You want to keep that going because they build as a witness in your mind. They build up one after the other until you learn to live your life in faith. I had this guy, he's about 25 years actually older than me. He's coming to our intensive next weekend, or this coming weekend. He just turned up on my doorstep. He saw the truck out front. His name's Peter. He's the skinniest old guy I think I've ever seen in my life. Like, God knows how those legs get him around. But he turned up on my doorstep and he started asking me about the truck, because the truck has Course in Miracles written on the back and some quotes and things on the side, and like it's quite a colourful thing. He said, look, I have to come and ask you about this truck. And I said, sure, would you like to come in? So we came in and the two of us sat in the front room there for about an hour and a half talking away. And Peter had studied in the Himalayas in 1950 something with some guru that I'd never heard of. And he spent 14 years with this guru, and he's written a book about it all. And he sent me the PDF of the book the other day. I haven't written it. I haven't read it or even started to read it yet. He sent me 3 books and he was telling me all this stuff, right? And I don't know if you know any really old people. Old people love to tell their stories. They just like to talk and talk and talk and talk. So I just listened and listened and listened. And he was telling me all this stuff about this guy and about how his teacher back then was this guy that could get into your mind, right? He could go into your mind and talk to you in your thoughts. And he said that was at the third level of the monastery where he was. And the top level was reserved only for the abbots and the, monks, lay monks and whatever weren't allowed in the top level. And especially not him, I suppose, being a European. But he stayed there 14 years, I think he said. And he was quite an incredible guy. And then as conversation turned, he asked me about what I did and things like that. And we started talking about past lives. And I could tell this guy had had an experience, right? Something had happened in his mind. He wasn't your average kind of just old guy, right? He'd had something, but he'd had no reference point for that experience ever since. He's back in the Western world and everybody thinks he's crazy and whatever for all those years, for like the next 50, 60 years of his life. And he's had no reference point for it. And it's turned in on itself, right? And I know some of you guys will remember the other week we were talking about if you have an experience, you've got to ground it. You've got to bring it into usefulness by giving it away, by learning to teach from that experience so as to hear yourself, because of the density of the mind that can turn that experience into an identity, right? I've had many experiences, spiritual experiences, but I know that none of them are the truth of me. They're just indicative of the truth of me, or one was the truth of me, right? But they also showed me that the me that I think I am doesn't actually exist. So what am I going to make an identity around, right? Which keeps you in the freedom and the liberty of the moment. It keeps you open and keeps you from having anything to need to defend. I don't care if people say I'm full of shit, or if they say I'm quite profound or quite wise. People often say, "Oh, you're very wise." Well, it's just self-knowledge. But a little self-knowledge is dangerous. You have to ground it. You have to give it a context in this world to be useful. Otherwise, your ego will grab a hold of it and turn it into part of an identity. And when I told Peter that I'd had an experience of an out-of-body experience with Jesus, where I was standing at the cross and I was looking down at my feet, and as I looked up, I was staring at a pair of feet with a big bolt through the feet, and blood and everything. And then it ended and I was back in the room. He immediately chimed in, "Oh, I was on the cross. Right? I was on the cross." And then he had a tattoo on his arm that was a tattoo of Osiris, one of the Egyptian gods. And this was my incarnation in a last life, he said, another last life. And I started to recognize the pattern of an ungrounded awakening, where the mind grasps for spiritual stories about itself to put the awakening into context, and it actually pushes you further asleep. It actually pushes you into a state where it's a delusional state, right? The awakening was true, but what the ego does with it is delusional. It's like trying to fit different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle from different boxes together to make the one picture. And you can't. You've got to go with the one box, the one picture, because that one picture of yourself is a true picture. It's indicative of all the other pictures in all the other boxes because you're one with all things. But your picture is your own individual awakening. Your picture is your one thing that's true about you. Right? So I'm sitting there just loving my brother who's telling me all these things like this, and I'm just totally owning it. I'm accepting the atonement for himself, for myself, for the stories and the stories and the stories. And he had endless stories, right? And eventually I had to say to him, look, I've got to cut you off, Peter. I've got people coming to look at the house. The house is on the market, which is true. They did, people was coming, but I couldn't do it, right? I had to go and process. So he's like, oh, sorry, taking up your time or whatever. And off he went. He came back the next day as well, and we had another little conversation, but he just turned up. But when he left, I was able to sit with it and process it as, this is me. Right? This is another timeline of me, another potential of me that had an experience that didn't ground it, that didn't give it context in the world as an idea of you must give as you've received. You must teach what you have learned. Instead, it went on and took that awakening and fabricated relevances for it from other aspects of life, other aspects of history, other aspects of spirituality, and put it into an identity package that had nothing to do with the giving of what was actually revealed in the moment of awakening. Right? And that's a big thing. Most people that have a random or spontaneous awakening usually end up in the nut house. I've seen God, and they run around. They either think they're Jesus or Christ, because it's that powerful. And that density, Tina, that you talk about, how the mind has this density or this cloud, this veil, you won't see beyond it. It's all of a sudden like the ego gets a supercharge and you're not aware that it's even happening. It's so subtle, it sneaks in the back, and you'll have, like, you go online and you'll see people that say, I'm a clairvoyant, or I'm a whatever, I'm a something. And it's like, that's what happens. At some point you may have had a true experience, but all of a sudden you've located it in time and space rather than allowing it to be where it actually is, with having nothing to do with time and space or any of the stories of time and space, right? And it suddenly becomes non-useful except to uphold the identity. And you'll talk about it as, oh yeah, well, I know it's just an illusion. It's not really me. It's just a part I played in the dream, right? And that gets really sticky. Right, which is why I love that bit that we read in here, right? A teacher teaches everything to make themselves redundant to their student, right? That's the difference between being already redundant. I'm already redundant to you guys as a reference point. Whether you're aware of it or not doesn't matter, but it's true. But it's the difference between being redundant and trying to not be redundant, right? And there's plenty of guys that make a good living out of being not redundant, charging huge amounts of money for Course in Miracles seminars, and, like, just as one example, and going on, and I'm a teacher of this and a teacher of that. It's like, what do you do with it? You can't do anything with it. All you can do is put your finger on your own nose, and there, by the grace of God, go I, and process it as your own atonement. That's it. That's the sole responsibility of the miracle worker, is to accept atonement for themselves. So when Peter left and I'm sitting there in my room and I've got my finger on my nose going, all right, this is me. I need to feel that this is me. It's not just a concept. I need to get past the idea that it's me and actually connect with it somewhere, because it did affect me that I was sitting there suddenly realizing this guy's just got a contorted perspective on his awakening. which started to happen to me within the first couple of years of my awakening. If it wasn't for Ted and all the other guys there, I would have ended up just like Peter, right? And I sat there with that, and a whole package of stuff came up, like a whole package of stuff. It was incredible. It's like even this morning when I first woke up in bed, I was still like giggling about it and laughing about it and like letting it all go. It was like bubbling up. But there's this whole sort of historic reference that I've got from the past of people I've met. I forget his name, but the guy that used to come around like at midnight to the women's area of the cabins and demand that they listen to him preach the Sermon on the Mount, you know, and it's like, dude, I understand something's happened to you that's profound, but this is not it. You know, this is a safe zone for women. You don't even perceive that you're actually stepping over a line here, an invisible line, and infringing on that, what the purpose of this place is. Like, it's just this full-blown bull in a china shop kind of thing. And if it wasn't for Annie, I wouldn't be here today. You know, I remember meeting Annie after my awakening about a year after or something at the markets. I was sitting on a bench and I'd been smoking a joint, which not anymore, but I'd been smoking a joint, and Annie came up to me and she goes, "What's going on with you, Dave? You've got all the energy of a dead fish." And I realized she was right. I realized that she was absolutely 100% correct. And it was then in that day that I'd made the decision to go back to the healing center full time and study under my teacher, right? Because I knew I was corrupting what had been given to me. I knew that I was kind of just like trying to use what had been given to me in my awakening to have a better version of the life that I was living before, rather than to realize that, no, that old life's actually over. It stopped in that awakening. Now you got to step into the new thing, right? And that took some time. That's the same's going to happen with you, Colin. You know those moments? Have you had any more of those moments where everything sort of fades out? And
There's a few times where I feel it coming on, but I can't let it go through.
All right. When you're ready, just let it happen. Right? If you feel it coming on, maybe sit on the couch, get a drink of water, and just let it happen. Right? I guarantee you, when you can feel it like that, it's like when I open my mind, I can feel that happening. I don't know how to tell you how I feel it, but I can feel it. It's like it zooms in on me or sucks me in or something, like I'm drawn into it. And then there's light on the other side, right? For you, having not yet been on the other side of that, you're going to be apprehensive and fearful. I can only stand as a witness to you here and tell you there's nothing to fear. It's going to be scary as shit the first time. And then once you get, it's like going on a roller coaster. Once you've done it the first time, you're like, wow, that was great. Let me do that again. You're going to wonder what the hell you were ever afraid of, right? But the ego will try to stop you. But just be aware of it. I mean, everything, you know, your strength is built in faith. So have faith and just do it in faith. I mean, ultimately, you don't have a choice anyway. So. Noodle, you good? You look good. No, you look good. Your energy's nice. It's just, there's no, nothing in there going against itself.
I usually feel good when I'm here, and then holding on to that when I'm not here is the hard part. So that's why you get a shrug.
Well, I understand that one too. Zoe's good. Natasha, you good? You always sit on that side of the couch. Is that your spot? Claire sits on the other side.
Yeah, seems to be that way. Yeah.
You guys are like a duo, you know, like when you have a TV series and Laverne and Shirley, you know, and there's like, they're always, the start's always the same. That's it. And you guys look good. Kevin's good. Natalie, what's going on with Natalie? You're all out of focus. Have you cleaned the lens on your camera lately? That's a little better. Where are you at, Natalie?
I'm in Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland, you are so. Oh, well, that's good.
Drinking both bottles.
Right,
Sure.
right,
I'm just taking it all in.
right.
I'm
Okay,
not trusting any of this. Everything that comes out, I can see it as just a lie. So I'm like, just,
good. No, that's good. You can put both bottles down now. Wasn't one a piece of cake? Wasn't it a
yeah.
bottle and yeah, so, or a biscuit or something? So you put the bottles down and let it all collapse. Like the rabbit hole stops as soon as you put those things down. You know, the funny thing is that it seems to take time. Like awakening seems to take time, this process of time, but yet salvation is not beyond immediate learning. And all you got to do is give your consent to it. That's it. It's just got to be a total yes. Yes, I want it. Whatever that is, Lord, I want it because I see that I can't trust anything that comes out of my mouth. All my words are a lie. I deceive myself. I don't know what my best interests are. I'm in this complete loop around and around and around. And eventually you reach the point like, no, I'm done with that. So all you got to do is give your consent to it, your willingness. Jono, what's happening? What's going on the back wall there? Your pin board seems to be getting quite prolific with... I seem to remember looking at that and there was like one diagram up behind you there and now there's like 50.
I just like turned it. I've always had that all that
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Yeah.
You know, Gangaji has this little teaching. She said, you can see how fucked up a person is. Maybe that's not her exact words. I think she's more polite than me, but she says, you can see how complex a person is. Let's put it that way in nice terms. How complex a person is by how many keys they have on their key ring, right? Which is indicative, Inna's got like 50 keys.
Sorry, I have no key.
Oh, you have no key. You're the opposite.
Well,
that's right. You're the other end of the perspective then. That's fantastic.
Yep.
So, I have quite a few keys. I have three vehicles and they all require keys and I always lose them anyway. So some of them I have 2 sets of keys because I'm so forgetful. But the idea then and part of that teaching was also if you go to somebody's closet and they've got like ridiculous amounts of clothes and, you know, they've got all these books and everything, it's like, well, my home or my comfort zone is my space, right, that I call my space. And my space is an absolutely undeniable, perfect reflection of my state of mind. Now you have these, what is it? They're more, I mean, it's old, but in the West, feng shui, right, where things are just so, and I think that's the translation of feng shui. It is so, or it's just the way it is, or something. But it's a kind of a divesting sort of philosophy where all of the clutter and the nonsense that sort of blocks the harmonic of your life is abandoned and you keep things so incredibly simple, almost like Zen, where you would have almost no furniture. You'd have a rock or something in your living room. But it was like that, you know. So when you look around your house, one of the things I love that Jesus says in the Course is, you know, you go into a shop and you have a long list of things you buy that you don't really need and you don't really want, right? And when you go around your house and you open the cupboards, there are people that are hoarders and they can't bear to throw anything away, right? Indicative of a state of mind. And there are people that live very simply and almost have nothing. And you think, how do you live like this, right? Now, I've lived in situations where I lived in a house with no walls at all once, just very short. Well, I didn't live there. A woman that I was particularly fond of lived there, and I would sort of co-live there off and on with her between my house and her house. But she had this yurt, and it was up on stilts, right? And probably 2 floors up in the jungle, in the forest, right, in a rainforest. There was no walls around. The insects, bugs, possums, everything could walk in and through it. You could see directly through from one side to the other. The toilet was a long drop that went down like 20 feet or whatever. And all she had at night was a mosquito net over her bed. And she was the most feral kind of existent woman that I'd ever met, and I think that's what attracted me to her initially. But I used to wonder. I had a little house in the hills, but it had a lock on the door and had walls, obviously, and stuff. And my philosophy in life at that time was always, well, if you've got something and it comes with a key, just use the key. If you've got a car and you have to lock it up, just lock it up, right? If it doesn't come with a key, don't worry about it. That was kind of the way I was trying to live my life, was to accept things as they are and to utilize them how they present. But I said to her, I said, aren't you worried that somebody's going to come in here and like just take advantage of your space? You got no walls, no nothing, single woman with a baby, like the baby was 14, 16 months old at the time. And she's like, no. And I was incredibly admirable of her state of mind. She just didn't care. She was just totally free, and like she became a bit of a role model in a certain way. And I was thinking about it, about her attitude to life and how carefree she was, and thinking about all the things, right? And this is before the Course in Miracles came along, thinking about all the things that in my mind I would have an objection to about living like this, or would find it difficult to appreciate living like this. And her toddler, unwatched for a moment, walked to the edge of the building and fell off, right? And we're like 1.5 stories up on these posts, fell off into the forest. And the both of us saw the baby fall. And I'm like, oh my God. And both of us, our hearts just came right up into our throats, and we raced to the edge of the thing. And there's this baby, right? I kid you not, 100% truth. There's this baby nestled in this massive bird's nest fern. It had fallen over the edge of the veranda and landed plonk in the middle of this big, massive rainforest fern, which is all soft and full of leaves and everything because the forest comes down in it. And it was like one of those May Gibbs kind of, what's that calendar where they put the babies in pumpkins and, you know, put the babies in such cute little things. There's this baby, not even crying. She's laying there in this bird's nest fern looking up going, what the hell just happened? Right, wondering what happened. And the two of us are looking down going, oh, there you are, not wanting to be dramatic about it, you know, like, there you are, there, we wondered where you went, you know. And this little baby, you know, not even a scratch on it, not a scratch. And the rest of the periphery of the house, straight down to the ground, right, thud. And this baby landed in the one thing, this massive big fern. So we had to go downstairs and then climb up the tree to get the baby out of the fern. It was just bizarre, you know, it was just bizarre. But it's like that whole, I think in that moment, she saw something like teaching and learning, right? She saw something that was a bit of a what if. And I saw something as well about living without the what if, you know. But it all culminated in this baby that doesn't matter about the if or the what if. It turned out perfectly. The moment turned out perfectly. We both saw something, we both got the result of it, and everything was fine, you know. And it's like, she lives in faith. She lives in that whole faith thing. And I at that time, I was living in this kind of apprehensive faith, I would have called it. I was wanting to live in faith, and I was hanging around people that sort of lived that way, I guess. But I recognized that I didn't have it totally. It wasn't my whole way of being. It was something I was still experimenting with and working on, you know. So anyway, just a funny story. I don't know why I was telling that story, but Anna, you good? Feeling it? Just take a breath. You can let that happen. That's all good. you're going to have to push through that at some point. Just stay with it. Don't adjust to it. There you go, right there. Good. There's a lot of stuff goes on over there in America land. It's like it tends to be the headline news of things that goes on in the Western world, I suppose, but it's like you guys must have signed up for the intense package. Down here in the land down under, we don't generally hear a lot. You have to go out of your way to find out the headlines and stuff. We don't seem to be right in the thick of it. We're like in the backwater. Gay's good. Dana, good. Alexi, good. What's happening, Alexi? I'm getting a buzz in my head.
I'm good. I'm baked.
You're baked.
Yeah.
Well, that's
From
always
this.
a good, that's always a good thing. Take a few breaths. You know, when I used to sit with my teacher and I'd get baked, he'd talk for hours, you know, and I'd have to go to the beach was just across the road, luckily, but I would go down to the beach and I'd just float in the ocean. Sometimes there was waves and I'd get smashed around, whatever it was, you know. But I had to get in the ocean and connect with that natural vibe, right? So the divine relationship on earth is body to planet, right? The divine relationship in spirituality is spirit to source, right? And it's not about balance or anything like that. It's just about appreciation and just letting it in. And it's like, maybe it is an illusion. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. But what have I got to lose by just making a connection, by just saying yes to something? And I remember my teacher, he used to say to me, some of you guys really just need to go and float in the ocean at the end of these sessions because you're all like all over the place and like, and when he said that, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try that. And it worked. Like it was a whole thing. I realized that feeling of being baked went, and I started to come back into a full awareness, you know, just 15 minutes in the ocean. It was incredible. Nature really is a powerful ally. You know, when you stop seeing yourself as a body separate from nature and realize that it's part of your chemistry, everything's the one thing. You know, it's the reason people go and walk off into the forest and go and have these sorts of things, because they feel they need to connect with something less man-made, more organic, more back to their roots, you know. And it's a really cool vibe. Andre, you good?
Yeah.
Good. Tina's good. Natalie's good. Carrie?
Kind of same. Stuck. Fear,
You're
anger.
not stuck. You're not stuck at all. You're choosing that. It's a conscious choice. You're not stuck. There's nothing preventing you. Like getting past those ideas of being the victim or being stuck or being, coerced or being whatever. You know what to do. It's like either let it go in form or let it go in your mind. It's the same thing. Arthur? You good? Good. All right, everyone close your eyes. Take a few breaths. Close your eyes and relax. That's good, Anna. You just stay there in that. Breathe. And try to realize that when you open your eyes again, the world is still going to be the world. Nothing is going to have changed because you sat in a Zoom meeting or because you did your lesson. The world is still going to be the world exactly as it was before. The only thing that might be different is your perception of it. Ever so slightly, or maybe huge. Maybe a profound shift in consciousness. But you are still going to be the same. Not you, your body, you, Christ mind. You mind in eternity now dreaming this whole thing, giving value to the people, the situation, and the images you think surround you in the world outside. Breathe. These people mean this. Those people mean that. I'm affected by these people because I'm affected by those situations because it's just a dream. It's just a dream. There is nothing that is set in stone that forces you to oblige to the dream in one way or the other than that you've chosen to. Jesus is calling you to an awakening. Jesus is calling you to remember where it is you truly are and what you are forever. With your eyes closed, in a meditative and prayerful state, you have a much better chance of connecting with Jesus, with the universal origin of all things, than with your eyes open. Because with your eyes open, you automatically fall back into the witness of the senses, see, hear, smell, touch, taste, and all the thoughts that you'll want to reference that with. It's important to spend time listening, quiet listening, as if you were reaching in to a very dark and foreboding place, perhaps, to a silence within you, which is why the mind training to still that mind, to get beyond that talk, to enter into the Buddhist no mind is important, and to learn to abide there as a favor to yourself, as a gift to yourself. I am willing to accept atonement at one-ment for myself. But how willing am I really? Am I willing to sit here for 20 minutes, half an hour, and practice this meditative stillness? Even if I feel like I'm not succeeding, am I willing to practice it? Or do I skip that bit because I'm fascinated with the concepts? There's an application to your spiritual discipline that requires that you be still and know that you are God. All things are God. God is everything, and that includes you. In moments of personal conflict, be still, connect to the source. You'll be shown the way out. In moments where you don't have any conflict, be still, connect to Source. Ask in prayer, help me, Lord, I don't know how to connect. I don't know how to be still. I need help with even this. You're entitled to miracles. You're a child of God. Down this rabbit hole we've tumbled into this world that we don't understand, that makes no sense. Jesus comes along and says, this is not your home. This is not your home. Give up the world and follow me. Entering into stillness and entering into silence is not just a part of that. It is that. Everything else to be forgiven and released and let go. We enter again into the circle. We enter again into awareness of our inner altar to present ourselves to God. Here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord, with all my lumps and bumps, with all my good points and my bad points. I'm willing to let them go and simply remember you. But you have to do it. It's in the doing that you become the witness. Not in the thinking about it, not in the reading about it, not in the listening to me in a satsang. In the doing. I'm just another figure in your dream, telling you something that may be different to what most figures in dreams tell you, but I'm still just a figure in your dream. Enter into that meditative stillness and refuse to adjust. It doesn't matter who's at the door. It doesn't matter if the phone rings. It doesn't matter if a meteorite is coming towards the earth. Refuse to adjust. Let your stillness become the most important discipline, the most important part of your practice. It's your time. It's your me time. Learn to use it to its best advantage. I'm going to be still. And if my mind wanders off to yesterday or tomorrow, I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to train myself to bring it back. I'm not going to judge myself or beat myself up for failing. I'm just going to remember to try harder, to do better, and to ask for help. One of the big missteps that a lot of sincere people make is to fail to ask for help from above. Help me, Father. I'm going to give myself to you now, and I need help even to do that because I don't even know how to surrender. I don't know how to let go. Breathe. You're learning to become completely dependent on God, Natalie. Completely dependent on God, Deb. Not on your own abilities. I see that I can't depend on my own abilities. Because if I do, I'm putting energy back into the dream of me, not the real me, and thus perpetuate the dream of cause and effect. And what I put out will come back. Jesus says simply, whatever you want in the world can and will hurt you. It's not a matter of if, but when. Let God be all it is that I want. The knowledge of self, my truth, my spiritual truth. The world can't tell me who I am. I have no identity in the world that is true. None that I can rely on. It all ends in death. My identity is eternal. My identity can only be verified by God. That emptiness in my heart can only be filled up by God. by love, love itself, the source of love. And we take our place on the road, mighty companions to each other, and we make our commitment, partly by seeing we don't really have a choice. We make our commitment to love, no matter what fearful premise it might bring up that we have to forgive. Take a breath. You can't be committed to love sometimes. It's all or nothing. Any questions? This is a journey into fear. This is a journey into confrontation with falsity. No matter how real it seems to be, no matter how many black flags it waves. On the other side of every confrontation is the release, the relinquishment of the block, and a greater awareness of my freedom and sense of self. But if I'm not making the confrontation, I'm actually putting it off because I use time for whatever purpose. There's no idle thoughts, no thoughts that do not have power. If I'm not making the confrontation, if I'm not in the action of forgiveness, living from gratitude, then I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm perpetuating my drama. I remember Rumi or Hafiz, one of the lines in one of his poems says, "I would love to see you living in better conditions." That's not about a physical living. It's about a state of mind. This journey is going to bring up all resistance. It's going to bring up every resistance you have. You're going to tell yourself you can't do it. You're not good enough. Somebody else is better suited to the task. All of these things. And you're going to give yourself every excuse to avoid making the confrontation with your denial. I'm not feeling well today. I've got too much things on my list today to do. I'll do this later. I'll look at this grievance, this judgment, this negativity, this resistance later. Breathe. Do it now. Now's the only moment you have. Colin, do it now. Jono, do it now. Breathe and let that happen. Gay, do it now. Natalie, Anna, do it now. The closest thing you'll find to perfection in the world is a realization that nothing here is perfect, including yourself. And you'll be okay with that. There'll be this little realization, oh, I get it now. I'm never going to be perfect here. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be exact enough. I'm never going to be exactly perfect in how I think perfection should look in the world. I'm always getting older and aging and things are changing. Imperfection here is what perfection is. Miscreation here is what creation looks like. It's like, oh, I get it. I see now what the situation is. I see now what the deal is. Finally, I can stop trying to make heaven on earth. I can stop trying to get everything right here. I can let go and accept perfection where it actually is within me. Where it actually is and as it actually is. When I was young, I very much had the thought I had to find the perfect partner, get the perfect job, live the perfect life, because something intrinsically inside me was looking for perfection. But I was looking out there in a world that reflected only imperfection. But because I didn't know any better, because I didn't have another reference point, I didn't have a Jesus, I persisted and persisted and persisted. One failed relationship after another, one shitty job after another, blaming everyone and everything. If only you didn't do this, I'd be happy. If only you were more like such and such, I'd be better off. I'd enjoy your company more. Hello? Finger on the nose. Good. All right, we'll leave it there. Anyone got anything to say? Deb, we'll see you at the intensive. You and Carl, you bringing Carl with you? You guys, with his long gangly legs? And if you guys get here on Friday or whatever, third, doesn't matter if you want to come. I mean, it's a nice neck of the world up here, or a nice part of the world. You can wander around. It's very touristy, but
yeah, we're going to try and get away on Thursday, go halfway, and then the other half on Friday. So we'll confirm that as soon as we know.
So you'll be here Friday afternoon, probably about 4 o'clock.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I
It depends.
I used to stop near Gympie. You know,
Yeah.
I'd do a big day. I'd drive 7 or 8 hours, and then I'd stop for the night, and then I'd do the last 3 or 4 hours the next day.
Yeah, we were going to do leaving at 3 a.m., but we're going to try and get away on Thursday instead. So, yeah.
Yep, fair enough. You might want to bring your own pillows and maybe towels.
Yep,
So
we'll do.
whatever else you feel like bringing. So
Yep, cool.
I haven't looked in the linen closet upstairs for. I'm assuming there's sheets for all the beds, but then I don't know. So we'll just work it out.
We'll be right. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I always say. We'll be right. We'll work it out. So,
Yep.
all right. I love you guys, and be at peace. Carry it with you. Put it into practice.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Where's my thing? There.
Find it. Mm. Okay. Oh God.
I love you.
I love you.
Hi.
Hi. I'm glad you made it back.
I actually fell asleep.
I figured because I sent you messages, I figured you must have fallen asleep. And I have
Yeah.
to remove people when their camera's not on. So your camera must have gone off. You
Yeah.
were asleep. So you were okay in the waiting room? That's where I put you.
I don't know. It was very strange. I didn't know when I fall asleep and I didn't know that I wake up. I was like,
You found yourself back in the room?
yeah, I was
Did you have to do anything to get back into the room?
no, I was in my room and then
No, no. Oh, no, no. I mean the Zoom room because I took you out of the Zoom room and put you in the waiting room. But
yeah,
did you have?
when I wake up, then I go back again.
Okay, so you just logged back in? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I think he's asleep, but I have to take him out. And I didn't want to kick you out of the room because I thought you might have trouble getting back in. So now I know how to do that for our friends who might fall asleep. It's good though. It's good though.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's good though. When the mind goes, can usually hear, but I have to move you when the camera goes off. So I'm glad you made it
How,
back.
how was your week?
Fruitful.
Beautiful?
No, fruitful.
Fruitful.
Yeah, I had a lot to process. And a lot
Oh,
to process. And it just goes deeper. So,
hard?
yes, but fruitful.
Okay.
The deeper, the more, and the more, I mean, it's just love. I'm just resisting love. So the more that I stop resisting it, it feels difficult as, resisting it, but the more that comes out, I always want to put my hand up to the other side. It's very, I try to be transparent, not for anyone other than myself, because I can only fool myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it is truly a journey into fear, and it has to be. We've been talking about, and I've been experiencing conversations that are orbital. And Brother was talking about there comes a point where you got to stop walking around and actually go into it. And once you
Interesting.
go into it, yeah, well, once you go into it, let me just be a witness to. I know I'm a witness to like it's scary, scary, scary as fuck, but there's so much incredible space and peace and joy. So I always want to put my hand up for that. And I want to be honest, more comes up. But you do become, I'm grateful. Let's put it like that. I'm grateful. And I said at the beginning that I had questions that were looping in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to record. I usually record stuff for the group. And I just could see in my recordings that it was defending, defending. I'm like, wow, I can talk well. But it was just defending and defending and defending and justifying and spiritual concept. So I didn't send those. And I talked to Brother about it. But there was these things that were looping, and I knew that they were just yes, but,
Mm-hmm.
and what
Mm-hmm.
about you? And it was like, and what about him? And finally, just like sort of all of the questions just sort of dropped. Like they're just defenses. They're
Mm-hmm.
just defenses. Delay in time, so they can drop. What is there to question? The whole lot. The whole lot is not true. But we dance for a while. We dance around. We walk around for a while and like Colin tip a toe in. So we do that and it's cool.
Mm. Interesting how hardest thing is to just do nothing.
Yeah.
Just releasing control. but you think by releasing you will, I don't know, you will die or something, and then
Yes,
it's still control.
yes, 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 yes. And a concept will tell you who's the one that's gonna die. You know what I mean? But that's a
Mm.
concept that you put into your mind, but it's in the application that you will be shown. It's in the application and the actual entering in. So and mighty companions join you. That's what's so beautiful. That's a true thing. That's a true thing. You're good.
Yeah. You think it's possible to listen to this satsang, or is it over and over?
Is it possible to listen to this satsang that we just had?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I record them so that we can, if that's helpful
Where,
for you.
where do you
In the
put the
in
recordings?
the chat that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get the last three. I think one of them you weren't even there for.
Yes.
I haven't sent it for a few weeks. I'll make sure. Takes me a minute. I'll put in the last two though. The last two are ready to go, so you'll have something. And then this one probably middle of the week I'll have it.
Yeah. The last two I remember, but this one
Oh, you were there? I thought you were only here for the last. So you did the
yeah.
three satsangs already?
Yeah, this one is the
Ah,
no,
hurry up! Wake up! Wake up! Three already?
this only third one, but this is,
Ah,
didn't count because I fell asleep.
does she need one more? Okay. Three already? Okay, good on you. Good on you. And you come every time. So yeah, that's beautiful, brother. It's really beautiful. I just always remember the message, the first message I got from you, without you even knowing who I was. I want a person, I want to know God personally.
Yeah.
A prayer like that, you don't need many satsangs. With a prayer like that, you'll be out of here in no time. I'm gonna assume you're telling the truth, even though you're a liar. I'm gonna assume it's the truth.
No. In that moment, I really was desperate. Now
Yeah.
I'm a little bit relaxed.
Yeah, of course. That's the dance we do. The ego doesn't,
Yeah.
that's what we call adjusting. So when the iron is hot like that, you gotta strike. When the iron is hot, it'll come around. It'll come around. You'll get
So,
desperate again. Trust and
yes.
believe. You'll get desperate again.
Something
And
bad will come, and then you
but
you want to go
you
back.
made a wise choice though in your desperation to reach out and say, make that prayer.
Yeah.
And that's not a prayer you can come up with in your own mind. That's not you. That's the prayer of the heart.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's true.
just be
And
about it. Sorry.
this